go. So we are live and direct, live in full effect, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Books and Friends. This is the Books and Friends TV. I'm David Sccialpi. Great to have you here. Great to have you on board. Welcome on board for another super special live interactive Q&A, live and interactive conversation. Welcome on board for another super special episode of the Books and Friends TV. In this new episode of the Books and Friends TV, we're going to be exploring and navigating the world of AI and data management for large organizations and small, medium-sized enterprises, meaning that we are super delighted to be joined by another super incredible expert, a super special guest daughter. So join us right now, directly from Madrid, Spain, the Chief Data and AI Strategist of Telefonica, the former Global Chief Digital Officer of AXA, the advisor of the European Commission Data Sharing, and the member of the European Parliament of the AI Observatory. Now out with his newest book, here we go, called A Data-Driven Company, 21 Lessons for Large Organizations to Create Value from AI, Dr. Richard Benjamins, everybody. Good morning, Richard, and welcome to Books and Friends.
Yeah, hello, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks to you. Super happy to have you here. It is an honor and the privilege for us to have you here. Super fascinating to catch up. Super fascinating to get in touch, to get in conversation with you for the next 40 to 50 minutes. Together with you, we're going to get more about your book that is now out and is now available on Amazon. It is published by Lead. Again, it is called A Data-Driven Company, 21 Lessons for Large Organizations to Create Value from AI, as well as we are going to get a little bit of insights and perspectives on all the things AI, data management, analytics management, and how to create a data-driven company. So we can get into the conversation. Let's get into the Q&A. Hashtag Books and Friends, guys. If you really want to interact with us, join the conversation, share your thoughts, questions, comments, opinions on all the things AI, data management, how to create a data-driven company. Dr. Richard Benjamins is here with us to get back to you in real time and answer all your questions. So you don't want to miss this. Simply join us and don't be shy. Let's get the Q&A started. Let's get the conversation started. There are so many things that I want to ask to you, Richard. There are so many things that I want to discuss with you. First thing first, let's start with your book. I found it very useful. I found it extremely concrete. It's a step-by-step guide that can really help companies understand what to do and how to do it when it comes to create a data-driven company and successfully design and implement a data-driven strategy in the journey to digitally transform their own businesses and organizations and operations. At the same time, it is also a book that advises, that explains and shares, informs about the potential risks we can companies might encounter, might be dealing with along the path to become data-driven. So it's a very complete book, full of frameworks, models for actions, actionable insights and advices, and very incredible perspectives from experts from incredible companies like EY, KPMG, O2, Rabobank, Santander, Telefonica, especially Telefonica, which is your company. And first question first, what has brought you, motivate you, inspire you to publish this new book? Tell us a little bit about it, a little bit of behind the scenes of this new research work, the goal, the purpose. How have you articulated this book? Super curious about it.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, you explained already so much about the book, yeah. So I hope I can add something to that. First of all, I think almost every large organization in the world is currently moving forward on using big data and artificial intelligence. Yeah? Yeah. And there are so many organizations that struggle with this. Yeah, it's like you can read a lot about having kids and how to educate them, but you don't know what it is until you actually do it. Yeah. Yeah. And that happens here as well. Yeah. So it's very difficult for large organizations to move forward on this data journey. And there are so many decisions they have to take and so many challenges they have to face that usually each company ends up trying things, failing, backtracking, doing something else, and sometimes they're not even aware that they are actually missed a large opportunity. So I've seen this in many organizations, and I myself have been for more than 15 years in large organizations, in AXA, Telefonica, but also know a lot of other companies, and they all struggle with the same things. Yeah. Now, if you look for books or literature about what is it that makes it so hard, you actually don't find a lot of things. You find a lot of things about how can I use AI or big data for my business? What are the use cases that I can do? How it can help the financial world or the retail world? There's lots of things about that. How to understand this technology for business managers? That's all there. Yeah, but there is almost nothing about if I am an organization, I'm somewhere in the journey or I start. So what should I think about? What can I expect? How long does it take me? How much do I have to pay? What is the cultural resistance I can expect? How can I deal with that? Yeah. So what I did is I wrote this. I thought, well, I want to share this or what I've learned. And I also learned that actually, while there are differences in different sectors, so it's not the same, the financial sector as public administration or retail, about 70% of the challenges are common. Yeah, because they're not about the specific sector, they are about the data and the AI transformation. And that is what I try to capture in, let's say, 5 large areas. Yeah. First one is the organization. What do you have to take into account into organization? Do you need a chief data officer? Where do you place it, etc.? Then it's business and finance. So value and how do you pay for it? There is technology. Yeah. Then there is people. And important. Finally, there is responsibility. Yeah? It's not only about making as much profit as you can in whatever way. You have to consider other things as well. Yeah. So I came up with 21 lessons for the 21st century. Yeah, to be prepared. and so that's why I wrote the book.
Fantastic, very fantastic stuff. Super fascinating stuff, and clearly we've been hearing for lots of years, for decades, that data was the new oil of the 21st century, and now it seems that that prediction now has become a reality. So that is no longer a nice to have, but a must to have. So it seems that it's a matter of corporate survival. This is my point of view about it. So it seems that data is now considered one of the most important strategic business assets of a company. According to Experian, 80% of businesses have seen more demand for data due to COVID-19 pandemic. So I want to get your thoughts on this. In your opinion, why is that? Why data is now the new oil, is the most important strategic business asset of a company?
Okay, well, I think there are 2 reasons today. Yeah. So one is that if you listen to data, if you are open to listen to what data tells you, you have a kind of an additional input in your decision making that is kind of objective. Yeah. So before the data, let's say, the data era, decisions are taken based on experience, on intuition, on gut feeling, and that's good, yeah. But now there is a different element, and that is actually, so what has happened in the past, and how can I learn from that? And that tells you, in a certain, to some extent, objective way, what is your situation, whether you like it or not, yeah. And that's a cultural challenge, because oftentimes companies or managers see data and they don't like it, yeah? And then you think, hey, should I do what I wanted to do anyway, or should I listen to data and maybe change my view? Yeah, so that's a cultural aspect. Now that is the origin of data. Yeah? It's about data-driven decisions beyond expertise and intuition. Yeah, but today there is actually another one, because most companies are starting to do that. So if you don't do that, then actually you become a laggard. and
Yeah.
you lose competitive edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are two reasons. One is positive, yeah, because it helps you optimize your business and create new businesses. And secondly, if you don't do it, you're out.
Yeah, it's a very big risk. So having outpaced by the competition. So this is going to be the biggest risk for companies. In your book, you say more or less this stuff. The big data and AI journey are integral part of the digital transformation journey, right? So COVID-19 has accelerated the digital transformation, the adoption of the digital transformation process of the companies and by 7 years, according to McKinsey. So lots of companies want to start working on this with big data, AI, analytics, but they don't know where to start. So with your team, with your colleagues at Telefonica, you've done a very good job. You have successfully and properly embraced the data-driven journey. You have created a data-driven company. So tell us more about it. Essentially, what is a data-driven journey? How is it articulated? And what are the main phases? Clearly, your experience at Telefonica is very appreciated.
All right. So indeed, if you want to become a data-driven company or create value from AI, it's not something that you can do tomorrow. Yeah, it's a process. It's a journey, and it's a difficult journey. Yeah, and it takes, in large organizations, can take easily between 3 and 10 years. Yeah, depending on how organized and structured and the size. Now, basically, the first phase that companies usually start with is exploration. Yeah? They've heard about it, they've read about it, and so let's do something just for the sake of understanding what it is. Yeah? They can do it themselves, or can even hire, contract it to an external company, but they want to use some data to improve revenues or to analyze something to better understand sales, to predict churn or whatever. Yeah, so it's about exploration. Yeah, it's important to select the right use case to start with, because you don't want to wait 4 years in an exploration. You want to have something in weeks or months. So you can take your biggest business problem, but you have to take one that is doable in a short period of time, and it should also have some impact in the business. Yeah, for instance, if you would do something online, but your revenues are only 1% online, then it can be a nice use case, but it really doesn't matter for your business. So you have to carefully select what you're going to explore with. Then once you are convinced, you have something, you can actually go to your management and say, okay, I want to do something big. We should do something bigger, and that requires a budget. Yeah. And it requires a transformation process. Then you start in the second phase, which is what is transformation. That means that you coordinate, you put together a team, you contract or you train the right skills, and you have a roadmap of use cases that you want to execute in the coming years. Yeah. Now, this is still a quite chaotic phase where you have a lot of change management, a lot of cultural changes that companies need to learn that this is important. Yeah. One of the things, if you're a large organization, that really helps in this transformation phase is to require every business in the annual strategic plan to mention the investment they want to do in data and AI and the benefits they expect to obtain. Yeah, because then it suddenly exists. Yeah, if you don't do that, it remains somewhere in the IT budget or in the marketing budget, so there is no visibility, and it's very hard to manage and to follow it. Yeah, so that's let's say a best practice. Companies that put it suddenly somewhere in the strategic plan explicitly, they suddenly get an enormous boost in moving forward. Yeah, that's the transformation phase. Yeah, it's the toughest phase. Yeah, because it takes a long time. You have to look at many things. Then you come in a phase that I called where you are becoming data driven. So the important decisions that you take, the biggest one, they can be informed with data. Yeah, that requires you have a technological platform, you have a data strategy, you have a data collection strategy, a lot of things, but you are able to take the big decisions not only based on experience and on meetings with the executive committee, but it is informed by data and even can be helped with predictive data. Yeah. And the last phase is really where you can scale at large. You can do it everywhere in the company. You can democratize this technology, not only to a department of technical people who are experts like data scientists, but really also all the business people have something at their disposal to improve their business. Yeah, and then you can also scale out artificial intelligence with all algorithms and all applications. And this is also when other things become crucial, things like privacy, trust, yeah, and using the data in a responsible way. Because if you don't do that, if you do it at scale and you are, let's say, you are making some mistakes in those areas, then it can cost you very expensive if you have to backtrack and to ask for apologies to your customers.
Very interesting stuff, very fascinating stuff. Becoming a data-driven company is now the #1 goal. If we get this journey done properly, for sure, we will get results also in term when it comes to the digital transformation, the success of the digital transformation journey of a company. So it's a big challenge from many perspectives, as you said, technological perspective, finance perspective, HR perspective, ethical perspective, social perspective. There are many aspects to take into consideration, Richard. So it's a big organizational challenge. I want to get your view. I want to get your thoughts on this perspective, the organizational perspective. So how to make it happen from the organizational perspective, because there are many internal challenges to deal with.
Okay, so the organizational perspective. I think one of the things that is important if you start the data journey is to identify or create an organization that's responsible for this. Yeah, and that typically is a chief data officer organization. Yeah, responsibility over the data, acquiring, collecting, cleaning the data, making the data available to other, let's say, to another department or to analysts or data scientists, and sometimes they also have the analytics part. Yeah, so not only the data itself, but also the value creation on top of that data. Now, companies are struggling with where to put this. Yeah, so where should I put the chief data officer? Is that within the IT department? Is it in the marketing department? Is it maybe in the strategic department or in the operational? So there are many options. And actually, if you start the journey, it really doesn't matter where you put it. It just has to be somewhere where people like it. Yeah, a champion, somebody who likes to use data, who wants to experiment. And that's the most important thing, because this is a large journey. It requires a lot of investments. So you need to have early results. If you put it somewhere in IT, but the IT person doesn't like it, then it probably will not. It just sits there, tries to do something, but it doesn't thrive. Yeah. So very important to put it in an area of a champion. But once you go to the next phase, yeah, that means that you've learned to organize your data, you've learned to create value, then of course you don't want the value to be limited to marketing or to finance. So you have to have a cross organization. Yeah. So typically that is a chief operating officer is relevant for all the business, or a chief digital officer, a chief transformation officer. Those are kind of temporary roles, temporarily in the sense of 10 or 15 years. Yeah. But those are cross-organization, and also it's very important, it should matter for the business. So you can put it in strategy because it's also cross, but strategy has less impact on the direct business. So it's better to put it in a cross area and an area that matters to the business. Yeah. And then there's another important aspect, that is how far or how close is this organization from the CEO? Yeah? And now, if you look at, for instance, in our case of Telefonica, when we started, I started with this in 2009, yeah, at the first area on data analytics in different areas. It was somewhere hidden in the R&D organization. Yeah. Now, in 2016, it reported directly to the CEO. Yeah? So it was -1. So if you become more, data increases in its importance, slowly it goes up into the corporate hierarchy. And then what you see, if the company becomes data-driven, actually it can go down a little bit, yeah, because it doesn't need the visibility, it doesn't need the endorsement anymore from top management, because everybody understands that data is part of the business, and you just have to do it, yeah. So then it can go down a little bit in the organization because you have internalized it in the organization, yeah. So that is very important decision. Where do you place it? It's very important. What kind of people do you attract, and how do you relate to other departments that are important? Yeah. So usually, that you can, if suppose you have a traditional business intelligence department. Many companies have that already since 20 years. Yeah. So they're dealing with data. They're doing analysis. They're doing reports. One thing you can decide is to put this new function into that existing group. Yeah. That has a lot of benefits because they already know how to get data, etc. But there are also things that sometimes it's better to create a new organization, because a new organization has new people, motivated people. They want to do new things, so maybe they have more a push into new things. Whereas a traditional organization has to deal with the past, and then on top of it with the new things, which can be sometimes in conflict of priorities. How do you relate to IT? Yeah? Because many of this is related to IT in terms of platforms that have to operate, they have to connect to data, you have to do the ETL.
Yep.
So ideally they should be very close together. Yeah. Because IT is a traditional, is an operational thing. So there is a lot of processes. If you want to start with it, it's all innovation. You have to try out a lot of things, fail. So there's a lot of requests from IT. Can you change this now? Can you change this now? Can you make this happen? And then if you use the traditional IT service level agreements, a simple thing like adding permissions might take you 4 weeks. Yeah. And if it's not exactly correct, then you need another 4 weeks. So you need agility in this organization because it's new. And so all those kinds of issues you have to think about before you actually take a decision.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic things. Fantastic points. Richard, lots of organization setting out, working with big data and AI, don't know where to start, and use cases, internal applications, as you call them, represent the starting point. Tell us more about it. What are these use cases? How to select AI and big data use cases to start work with it, and how to get them right.
Yeah. So as I said already earlier, if you start, it's important to start with the right use case that doesn't take you too much time, but still has some impact in the business. Yeah. Now, overall, if you are a bit more mature on the journey, then of course you need a portfolio of use cases. Yeah. So and usually you plot them in a quadrant that says, on the one hand, you have how much value can you generate, and on the other X, you have how feasibility is, how easy is it, and of course, the easier it is and the bigger the value, that's where you want to be. Oftentimes, if it's a big value, it's very hard to do, so it takes you a long time, and if it's very easy, there is little value. But anyway, you need a portfolio of use cases, and that's important, and then you have to report on the benefits of those use cases, because organizations, if you invest in those things, they also want to know what's the return. So you need to be able to tell them what has been your economic return of using this kind of technology, and therefore that is important. Now, how can you measure the business impact of a use case up front? Of course, one thing is measuring it afterwards, but also you have to make a business plan. Now, usually, if you take an area of a company and simply you calculate what's the budget related to that area, that gives you already an indication of how the business impact is. Because with this technology, probably you are able to optimize or improve maybe 1% or maybe 5 or maybe 10. Now, if your business area, your business problem is a few millions or is a few hundreds of millions, then with the same technology, your uplift in business is enormously bigger if you select a bigger business problem.
It's very interesting stuff. Data collection, in your book, you say data collection is a complex process that needs to be managed explicitly as a pivotal element of the data strategy, so conducted properly. I totally agree with you on this. I've been working on this stuff years ago. So I want to get more about that data collection, how to properly collect data today. What are the challenges, new challenges companies are facing in collecting data? And I think it's a very interesting stuff to get to know.
Yeah. Well, indeed, if you are let's say a traditional company, from an industry like energy, finance, communications, even public administration, and you generate data as part of your operation, because anything that happens in an organization today leaves a kind of digital trail somewhere in a system. Well, I think there is a misunderstanding and actually a myth that if you generate data as part of your operation, then immediately that data is available for analytics and for value creation. Now, that's a complete myth. And many companies that start with this also face that problem, where they think, okay, let's do this use case to start with. And they say, okay, what is the data we need for that use case? And then they start looking into their IT systems, where is the data? And they don't manage to get it. And sometimes it takes them 6 months to get it. And so that's the challenge. Now, how can you deal with that? What can you do? First of all, oftentimes data sits with the provider. So you have a whole operating system, and it happens that provider X is running your system and therefore is generating the data. It's one question is whether actually they store the data at all. Because if you have a contract with them for a service, then you have an agreement on the service. Today, smart companies not only include the service, but also the data that is collected, and they ask access for. But in the past, that didn't happen. So then you find out, okay, this data sits with that provider. Okay, so hey, we would like to do some work with big data and AI. Can we get our data? And of course, the provider says, well, we haven't planned for that. We haven't budgeted for that. It's not available. So it takes us 6 months, and you have to pay X amount of money to get access to it. That's a kind of cold surprise. And if you look backwards, at least in my experience of all the projects that I've done in the past, always the showstopper or the delaying factor was data accessibility and data quality. So therefore, you can't assume that you have your data available. You cannot assume that, and therefore you need a data collection strategy. You need to decide what data do we need, when do we want to have it, and what is the budget that I need to make sure that the data is available. And that goes from very simple things as if you sign a contract with a provider for a certain service, always make sure that there is a clause, a standard clause that says whatever data you generate from operating my service, this data is mine. I have rights on the data. It's not yours, it's mine. If you have to charge me something for preparing it, charge it now and don't charge it later. And also have a kind of service level agreement that you can have access within 48 hours or 24 hours or 1 month, whatever is needed for the business. If you do that as part of the contract, then those providers are much more willing to accept that if you do it add-on, because you're already working with them, and then they see an opportunity. So that's very important. Very simple, but it's a kind of cultural change that has to penetrate the organization, especially the legal departments, that they take care of that. And then, of course, I think that's one of the most important things. And if you build, for instance, an application, you build an app for your customers, that many companies do that. Don't think only about the functionalities of the app. Also think about, hey, what data does the app or can the app generate? And I want to capture the data, yes or no. Of course, taking into account privacy, consent, legitimate interest, GDPR stuff. But you have to think about it in advance if you build any product, because all products generate data. And if you only think about the product, and not about the data it generates, then again, once you want to use the data, you have all kinds of surprises that take you a lot of effort and frustrations.
And you say in your book, we live in the era of data abundance, and the fact there is general data abundance does not mean that data collection is trivial or easy and free of charge. And there are lots of issues related to properly collect data. We already got some questions, and some of these questions are right on this aspect of data collection, how to integrate data. I'm gonna pick up them, so I want to take this train.
Right.
It's these two questions are from mail via Panico. She asks this. One question is about data integration. So how to integrate first-party data and third-party data, and how to include, put in also financial data, because data that have financial data have a strong influence in the decision-making process of listed companies. This is the first question that we got from Milvia.
Okay, actually, it's a good question, because what I've been speaking so far is about your first-party data. Yeah, it's the data that you generate as an operation. But of course, oftentimes you need external data that you can actually buy on the market. Yes, so-called third-party data. It can also be for free. Yeah, it could be open data. But you have to consider this as well. Yeah, explicitly in your data collection strategy. When do I need, in this case, financial data? Yeah, depends a bit on the industry, of course, where you are in. If you are in the financial industry, then of course this is key data to have, because there's a lot of financial data out there. Yeah, with Google, with Bloomberg, which you can actually integrate into your systems. But then actually it becomes just like any other use case. Yeah, you have to decide what kind of data you need. You need to make sure that you get it. It has to be interoperable with the data that you already have, and then you apply it to solve a certain business problem. Yeah? So in that respect, I don't see this as a special case, unless you are a financial company or an investment company where financial data actually is all the data you have. Yeah, take into account that many decisions that managers taken are financially oriented, so they oftentimes or mostly look at economic benefits, but the data they use is oftentimes not financial. It's just data that is being gathered in the process of operation. But in the end, the objective of many companies is to turn that data into some kind of economic impact. Yeah, and of course, if you are a financial industry, then financial data is your first-party data, but also your third-party data.
Very interesting stuff. So it is quite important working with external providers and partners at some point along the path to become data-driven. Why do organizations decide to work with external partners, providers? What are the benefits of working with them?
Well, there are many different reasons why they want to do that. First, if an organization wants to take advantage of data and AI, but doesn't see it as a strategic part, well, they just hire it. Yeah, they say, a company, hey, we have this problem, we want to use this, please do it for me. And then we don't care how you do it, just do it. Yeah, so that's one reason companies do it. Yeah, they don't see it as strategic. However, if you look at large organizations, usually they have an interest in understanding what's going on and having at least a small team internally that's understandable, that understands all these things and actually can execute the things themselves. Yeah, and what organizations then do is, if they really start, they start with an external provider, but because they have no knowledge. Yeah, they have an agreement with the provider that you can start, but we have an objective to internalize. Yeah, so they have to transfer their knowledge and transfer all the code and the tools they make, and then bit by bit, this organization is having capabilities internally to continue the journey. So but this is very different from a strategic perspective. Yeah, I just want to make it happen. I don't care, and I want to make it happen, but I want to be in control myself. Yeah, and then later on in the phase, there are, if companies have their own teams and they can do it, they still have a limited bandwidth. Yeah, so even they have the teams, but they still want to do more beyond their bandwidth. Rather than hiring many more people, they actually can subcontract a particular project out of the company to a provider, but of course with the objective to internalize this later in the internal team. Yeah, so also it's a matter of a trust relation, a matter of transfer of knowledge, to have it finally internally. What would be a mistake is if you subcontract everything from the beginning out to different providers, and you expect to be able to move forward on the data journey, because then you come to the conclusion after some time that maybe they took technical decisions that you don't agree with, but you had no visibility on. You're completely locked in because you have no internal knowledge and you have to believe everything the provider tells you. So this is a kind of, if you want to move forward on a data journey, that's a mistake that I've seen in different sectors that you can have.
Cool. Fantastic stuff. Very interesting point. Let's talk about, there is always a little bit of skepticism when it comes to, embracing new journeys, especially within large organizations, right? And I want to get your point of view on this stuff, Richard, because, it doesn't seem, when it comes to implementing the data-driven strategy, the problem doesn't seem to be a technological one, but it seems to be a cultural one. So cultural issues are, we need to deal with them when it comes to implementing a data-driven strategy. So how to win over skeptics, how to make people that are resistant to new data analytics initiatives think the contrary and start working on that, how to convince these people that implementing a data-driven strategy or initiative, AI initiative, is important.
Yeah, as you say, becoming data-driven or AI-driven is a new thing. Yeah, so it has all the challenges that any large change has. So you have to do change management until it becomes a standard business as usual. I mean, that's unavoidable. Now, if you have to work with if you have to deal with skeptics, people who are skeptical about those changes, the best strategy is to avoid them. So just go to champions, go to people who like it, because it makes it much easier to work. You progress much quicker. And if half of the company is using the technology, the skeptics will come by themselves. So you don't have to do anything. Yeah. So that's the best strategy. Start with champions, and then the laggards will come by themselves because they will see that they have no way not to do it. That's the best way. However, if you have to deal with them because they, let's say, they sit on a big use case that the company wants to do, then you have to deal with them. Yeah, and the problem is that those people, they think, okay, I'm doing this. I manage this business for 20 years, I know exactly what I need. I know exactly what I have to do. I know exactly what rules there are. So why would I need anything else to do my business? Yeah. The other challenge is that if you sit as a manager on a database, you are in control of what data gets out. So if you have to say, okay, we have this month, we have done this, this, and this. The moment I share that data for analytics, then there are people who can look at the data. And in that sense, data is power. And if you share data, you share power. And that's something that traditional managers don't like. So they want to hold on to their power. So those are all reasons why people are skeptical. Yeah. Now, what can you do against that? So what I've seen is the best way is you try to find within that skeptical organization a champion, a person who is open-minded, who would like to explore things, and you work under the radar with this person. You agree something, let's try this and let's try that, until you find something. If you don't find something, you just go away and you do something else. Yeah. But if you find something that works, then you give it to this person, yeah, within the business organization. Say, okay, socialize it in your organization. Yeah. And that means that rather than seeing this something from the outside, hey, they're going to tell us something, they're going to measure us, they're going to impose something on us. It's coming from the inside. Look, we have looked at this, it's very innovative. Look how good we are. Look how we can improve our business. And you completely change the dynamics. Yeah? So
create momentum.
Yeah, the momentum. So what people don't like is if you tell them what they have to do, and then they interpret, okay, so maybe I should have done this myself and I didn't do it. So I'm going to kill it because it's against, yeah. So they see it as a kind of threat. Whereas if you make it so that it comes from the inside and say, look, we found this and we can improve this. So that's the way how you win over skeptics. And I've seen people in the first meeting, they told me, please go away. Unless you have very concrete results, I don't want to know anything about this. And 1 year later, they publicly stated that this was the best thing that they have done. So if you have to deal with a skeptical person, over time, yeah, it will disappear. Yeah, it will simply delay your project. It will create some frustrations because they will say to the manager, yes, we will do it. And then they will try to not do it. Yeah. But that disappears over time. And if you find a way internally, then it's much better. Yeah. So one of the things I learned in large organizations, you always have to work with many departments. Yeah. So if you work with data, you have to involve the business area, you have to involve the IT area, you have to, of course, to involve the data area. But then if you are a real multinational, you have to do it at the corporate level and you have to include them at the local level. Yeah. So in the end, you have a meeting with 6 or 8 departments. But if you don't do that, somebody feels that you step on their toes, yeah, and starts to, hey, why am I not involved in this? So you have to be very careful. And it's also important to give always the credit to the business. Don't take it from the data part or the A part. Always give it to the business. Because otherwise they will see it as something that is being imposed of them rather than as being part of them.
That's very interesting stuff. Organizational perspectives are very interesting perspectives. And you say in your book, becoming a data-driven company requires many changes on many different levels. Besides the technical requirements that must be established, we need to change the corporate culture and the skills of the employees. So it's a matter also of skills and capabilities right now, because it's a more or less new stuff for many companies. So we have other things to touch. Other things to touch. I'm super in love with the idea of data democratization, and it's a super fascinating process, super fascinating stuff. I'm all in for this. And in your book, you say that data democratization is a key component of becoming a data-driven company. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, okay. So if you start with the journey, then you want to concentrate, everything in one organization to create critical mass, to leverage the let's say the scarce skills and profiles that are in the area, and therefore you want to centralize things. Yeah. But if you are mature, that means you have a data platform, you have a data collection strategy, you have your data readily available, and you can create value from that. Well, why would you keep that value creation in a small team of data scientists? Yeah. So therefore, then the process of data democratization is key to scale out. Yeah. You don't want to have, even if you have a large area of data with 100 people. Yeah. They still, if a data-driven company, there are so many requests for data and analytics and AI projects, you have to do a demand management system. Yeah. Which means that there are always people who have to wait. Yeah? And if you look at the pipeline of the things that are demanded, some things are fairly standard. Other things are very hard, and some things maybe are related to innovation. Now, data democratization means that the things that happen more often, and are better understood, you take them out of the central department and you put them close to the business. You have to train people. They don't have to become data scientists or programmers, but they have to understand the basics of data-driven decisions. And there are many tools out there that you don't need any technical skills, where you can do a prediction of churn or of sales, or you can even do a dashboard of showing how the data is. So that is data democratization. And the best way to do it is, so you have your nuclear team of data scientists and data professionals, and they could train together with HR in a program the next layer of a bit technical people closer to the business. Maybe you go from 50 people to 300 people, with workshops, with some training, and then you suddenly have 300 people who can work on this. And those 300 people, they can train again the next layer of people who are even less technical, with tools and with support. And then you scale it up. And that means that in the end, every single business that an organization takes is informed by data. Not only the big things, but also the small things, because of course, there are very big problems that you can solve already, but there is a very big long tail that really individually they don't matter. But if you sum up all of those small use cases, then you can still get really a big amount of benefits. And this is about culture. It is about training, involving HR in rolling this out. Sometimes you can hire a company that helps you train the organization, and you have to have tools. There are coming increasingly more tools that they do some kind of machine learning off the shelf. In the cloud, you just upload your data, and then you can run some models. You can look at them, and actually, at least you can explore about the business value by business people, not by technical people.
Fantastic stuff. So far, Richard, we have been talking about the use of AI and big data in a very positive way. We've been, talking about the advantages and the benefits for companies to improve their businesses, increase revenues, reduce costs, innovate, and get some advantages. But for sure, there are lots of concerns about the potential misuses or unintended consequences of AI and data. I recently read an article from HBR, Harvard Business Review. This article was published 1 month ago. They said AI regulation is coming. Also, Elon Musk said, let me quote him, that is going to challenge is a fundamental threat to the existence of human civilization. So unregulated AI could be the biggest risk we face as a civilization. So there are lots of changes, lots of challenges, lots of ethical and social implications when it comes to the use of AI, to use the AI and big data properly. So how do we deal with them? What are the key challenges, the key risks related to this use?
Yeah, very
or good or misuse.
Yeah, very important. So, as I said, so the book is structured in 5 parts, and the last part is called responsibility. And so all what you mentioned is in that part. Now, it is true that if you use this technology without thinking for certain use cases, then you might end up with some unintended negative consequences. Think about the camera we all have in our phone. If you take a picture of a group of people, there is a rectangle in each face. And in the beginning, a few years ago, if you had a colored person in the group, there was no rectangle around his face. Now, obviously, that's a case of discrimination because the technology doesn't recognize all people in an equal manner. But the software maker of this camera actually didn't want to discriminate. It just mistakenly forgot that if you want to train a machine learning algorithm today for a certain group of users, you need to have a representative data set. Yeah? That means you need to have a data set with faces of all kinds of people in the world. Yeah? If you mostly have white male people in your data set, then of course the system won't learn to recognize black women. Yeah? So you have to be careful in using this technology if it can have an impact on people's life. Yeah? Think about using a system, an AI system, to give a loan to people. You want to avoid that they default on the loan. So you can use all kinds of analytics to make that system better. But of course, you don't want that system to use race or political conviction or gender for deciding whether you give somebody a loan or a mortgage or give him access to public schools or public hospitals. You can't do that. That's forbidden by law. Yeah? But you can do it even without knowing it. So the important thing is that you have to be aware of those risks while building or buying those systems, and you have to follow a methodology which I call responsible AI by design that helps you to avoid those mistakes. Yeah. Now those are the unintended negative consequences of AI, which there are many today because it's not corporate culture to use those things. Yeah. With the AI regulation that's coming up, at least in Europe, that will change. Yeah? There are certain areas, 8 in particular, that will be regulated. That means that before you put them into the market, you have to do a list of things. Yeah? And one of the things is just what I said. You have to check whether your data has no bias if you want to use it for a certain group. But there are other areas that you have to check as well. Yeah. So that would regulate ex ante. So before you put it in the market, to help that. Yeah. Misuse is something else. Yeah? Of course, those are people who want to use this technology not for improving their business or for doing good, but really for doing bad, for taking advantage. Yeah. For doing fraud, etc. Of course, that has nothing to do with this technology. It's just criminals that the law, it's already forbidden. You don't need any regulation because it's already regulated. But of course, it still happens. Yeah. So it might be interesting if you develop this technology. Always think about dual use. Yeah? What other uses could I have of this technology that I might not want to promote? Yeah. Of course, you can still do it, but it's the thinking about standing still, reflecting. Is this a good thing to do? I know it's good for me, but in the larger perspective, is it good for the people and the world? Yeah. So that's also a thing that is important. And then the last part of consequences of this technology are big problems that nobody has solutions about. Think about if we automate more and more of the jobs of people or the tasks of the jobs of people, what will happen to the future of work? Yeah? There are many studies, there are many opinions. Nobody knows what will happen. We will see. Yeah? But what happens if, let's say, with this technology, we maintain productivity in the countries, or we grow productivity, but we don't need so much human labor. So what happens with all the people who are not needed anymore? They have more free time. Will we have a weekend of 4 days or 3 days? But how do they get paid? Yeah. Well, do we need universal basic income? What about the pensions? If less people are working, more people need support. So how do governments manage that? Those things are unsolved. Yeah. And then there is a third part. While we maintain productivity, the benefits of this productivity today are going to very few companies. Yeah. So the inequality is becoming bigger and bigger if we continue the way we do, because the largest companies have the best data, have the best scientists, and create the best products. And that's a virtuous circle that they give them more and more power in the world and more wealth, more and more concentrated. And that's also a consequence of using this technology at large. That is something that at least globally, and governments need to discuss about.
Yeah, they have to deal with, because it's now an urgency. It's a big priority. Very quickly, Richard, what I was trying to remember those companies that are successfully working with AI and big data. What are the companies, based on your experience and long experience in the field of intelligence system, AI and big data management, and as well as in the industry, from your privileged observatory, what are the companies that have successfully demonstrated to be data-driven in the B2B and B2C world? Some names, some examples?
Well, if you look at the companies that excel in data, those are the companies that are digital from a native perspective. So they've grown, they've been created in the last 20 or 10 years, and we all know them. It's the big tech. So probably they don't even have a chief data officer. They don't have any special place for data, because data is everywhere. Everybody sees it as fundamental for the business and the organization, and there's no question about it. So, I mean, we can all name them, So there's our Google, Microsoft. Unfortunately, unfortunately, they have also some of those negative consequences, because they use it so intensively and in so many places. There have popped up some of those negative consequences that they have to deal with, And even with the wider, bigger consequences, they also have to look at that. But there's no doubt that a company that starts today takes this as a principle. And a company that started 50 years ago or even more, they have to do this transformation. Now, if you look at the companies that have done the transformation, then let's say the top companies are some of the one in the US, the big retailers, financial industries, telecommunication industries, companies that traditionally have had a lot of data, and they use that data through BI departments. So those are the sectors that are most advanced.
Cool, fantastic. Richard, more or less at the end, we are more or less at the end of the conversation. This is going to be the last question, last questions last. I get fascinated by your work at Telefonica and this idea of using data for good. So I'm a big fan of social or sustainable development goals, and I get fascinated by your work on this stuff. You are the founder, co-founder of Big Data for Social Good of Telefonica. Tell us more about it. Here we are with the social development goals. How can we leverage data for this sense?
I worked a lot with, as we've seen, with creating business value from data. But if you take a step further, actually the same data you can also use to solve large problems. So in our case, telecommunications data, if you anonymize and aggregate that data, you have a kind of mobility data of populations in cities or regions or countries. It also is about footfall. So it's estimations, like statistical information that you don't get anywhere else. Now, and that information is very useful if you want to understand the human impact on earthquakes or natural disasters. How suddenly people begin to move in groups, differently than what they do usually. Where to send support facilities after a natural disaster. This kind of data is very important for that, and we did many experiments with that. We also helped in humanitarian in forced migration because of climate change or because of political situations that people are forced to leave their country. So where do they end up? Do they have access to education? Do they have access to health? It's very hard for governments to know that. Now, if you have privately held data, you can actually do things that. COVID is all about propagation. It's a very, very contagious disease. And so mobility, how people move around is very important. So we're sharing on a daily basis still today data with mobility data with the European Commissions together with other 16 European operators. So the European Commission and the European Center for Disease Control, the European Agency for Medicine, can look at this data from a European perspective to understand the impact of movement limitations, to understand the impact of those movements on positive cases. And that's really happening, really. So there are so many things that you can do with data to improve the world. The problem with those things is they don't have yet a business ecosystem. So they are mostly remain in pilots, demonstrators, but they're not put into operation, because then they need a budget and it's unclear who is willing to take care of that budget.
That's a very interesting time. Thank you so much for these efforts in trying to achieve the goals of the, set up by the, defined by the United Nations a couple of years ago. Last question. What wisdom would you like to leave us with to inspire business leaders? What's your final advice to chief data officer, entrepreneurs embracing the data and AI journey, transformation journey?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think I would. The last inspirational thing that I would leave here is that once you have some data in place, you know how to create value for that. Think about how can you use it, to go beyond profits and to help to improve the world. It's either socially, and also now during the COP26, about climate change. There is a lot of companies that have very interesting data to fight climate change, which is of key importance for all of us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. We are at the end of the road. Final greetings, everybody. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's been a fantastic Q&A. I do want to officially greet and thank Richard Benjamin for being with us, for helping us getting more about this fantastic world of AI and data management, all the challenges companies, also governments have to face with in the next few months and years. And clearly, we do look forward to your next book, Richard, and again, published by Lead, a data-driven company, 21 lessons for large organizations to create value from AI. We do look forward to catching up with you soon. How to get in touch with you, Richard, how to professionally reach you if someone wants to collaborate with you, want to get in touch with you to get more about your work?
I think the easiest way is through LinkedIn, or there is also a LinkedIn page of the book. So also if you connect to that, but LinkedIn is the easiest way to do.
Again, thank you very much for joining us. I do want to greet and thank also our all listeners for following us, watching us, and supporting us. If you really enjoyed this episode of Books and Friends TV, simply subscribe our YouTube channel, drop us a like. We will be back soon with another super Q&A on November 18 with Don Sember on the themes of artificial intelligence, simply unmissable. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all. See you at the next. We leave you with this quote from a data-driven company. We live in an era of abundant data. Dr. Richard Benjamin. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Cheers. See you at the next. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Done.
It says recording in progress now.
Done.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you very much, Richard.
You speak so fast. You spoke so fast in the beginning. Impressive.
Really? Yeah. Really?
Yeah. But I think it's part of your.
Right at the beginning, we have the energy. Then we tend to slow.
No, but it creates energy in the session.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because there are so many sessions that are kind of
boring,
slowly going on. But I think you bring a lot of energy in the discussion. I think that helps. To make it more attractive.
We need to create a little bit of momentum, a little bit of great atmosphere. That people want to get the right atmosphere. In my opinion, this is my approach. But right at the beginning, you got to demonstrate to be a little bit, energetic. So thank you very much indeed for being with us. It's been a fantastic Q&A, and I don't know how to say thanks. And
no, you're welcome. It's also to on one hand, of course, to promote my book, which is always nice, and also to give more organizations the opportunity to go fast, to create faster value from this technology, and to avoid the mistakes. So will you? This is recorded, and you will publish.
It's already on YouTube. And
we are still